consciousness and the cosmos. A path to one's own inner cosmos. In assistance of the more profound understanding of the current planetary transition. A stimuli that accompanies the pilgrim in his return to his cosmic home.
Hello, dear listeners. My name is Katya.
My name is Arawinak, and together with Jess,
we will be hosting the program. The Consciousness and the Cosmos, a radio program of Uksim Planetary Service Center.
Today we have chosen the following topics.
Physical cosmic field has physical-etheric laws and great amplitude and flexibility.
The 7 nuclei of the consciousness that make our evolution in our planet possible.
How do those 7 levels interact?
Before we start, I would like to introduce the term monada. In Cosmosophy, we use a new term for the word spirit. We call it monada. We use the word monada because, for centuries, the word spirit has been abused in its use. For example, it has been widely used to speak of medium practices, where they call the spirit of somebody, for example, which is very limited and limiting. The monada spontaneously operates in many different cosmic and galaxy levels, which is imaginable for the human consciousness.
Entonces, nosotros tenemos 7 núcleos de conciencia. Los 4 superiores conforman la vida interna. El más elevado es el nivel divino, el segundo es el monádico, ¿sí? El tercero es el espiritual, el cuarto es el intuitivo, donde el alma, cuando está madura, está polarizada.
Daniel Gagliardo says, "A vast spectrum of life is activated and going through evolution, which is called the physical cosmic level. And the physical cosmic level has 7 levels. So all the planets that are part of systemic or galactic fields, which have expression in the physical cosmic, have counterparts in those 7 levels, and fundamentally the karmic level of those solar systems and those planets.
Conforman el ser interno. El ser interno tiene 4 núcleos. El ser externo tiene 3. Entre el ser interno y el ser externo, ¿sí? La ley planetaria le ofrece a la conciencia interior un elemento que opere como puente. Ese elemento que opere como puente se llama ego. El ego es una expresión, una exteriorización, una...
The physical cosmic level is where the initial stages of evolution take place. This stage provides many opportunities for rehearsing and refining these evolutionary aspects. For instance, it is possible to begin exploring the law of karma on these 6-fold and 7-fold levels.
Entonces, todos los planetas que forman parte de campos sistémicos o galácticos que tienen expresión en el físico cósmico tienen contraparte en esos 7 niveles. Y fundamentalmente el nivel kármico de esos sistemas solares y de esos planetas.
Daniel continues, all the planets that exist in galactic fields and have a physical cosmic manifestation also have corresponding counterparts on 7 different levels. The karmic level of those solar systems and planets is fundamentally related to this physical cosmic level. At this level where the first evolutionary aspects are experienced. The etheric physical level of the physical cosmic field allows our civilization to have a physical etheric body, which in our solar system responds to the systemic sub-laws, which are the etheric physical laws of our planet.
El nivel etérico físico del campo físico cósmico permite a nuestra civilización tener un cuerpo etérico físico, que en nuestro sistema solar responde a las subleyes sistémicas que son las leyes etérico-físicas de nuestro planeta. El sistema solar tiene un campo etérico físico con distintos grados de intensidad y manifestación.
The physical cosmic field has physical etheric laws with great amplitude and flexibility, varying depending on each solar system and planet's needs. Above the physical etheric level is what is known as astral or emotional laws. Those astral or emotional laws are also cosmic and universal, only that they have specific conditions on our planet. They exist in other planetary and systemic realms, in other galactic fields, but with the conditions that we know them, are only on our planet and in our solar system.
Entonces, insistimos, tenemos 7 núcleos de conciencia, los 4 superiores son lo que se llama supramentales, vida interna, el ser interno. Esos 4 núcleos conforman el ser interno. El ser interno tiene 4 núcleos. El ser externo tiene 3. Entre el ser interno y el ser externo...
Daniel continues.
We have 7 levels of consciousness, out of which the upper 4 levels are called the supramental inner life, or the inner being. These 4 levels align with the inner self. The outer self, on the other hand, has only 3 levels. The planetary law offers the inner consciousness a bridge between the inner self and the outer self, which is called the ego.
The ego manifests the soul's energy released through planetary earth law. It serves as an extension, an external expression of the soul, and enables it to utilize the 3 lower levels, namely the 5th, 6th, and 7th, as its manifestation bodies. So the personality is those 3 levels, and the ego is the energy coming from the soul as a reincarnation appendix that will take the personality to do the evolutionary experiences.
Esos 7 niveles permiten hacer experiencias kármicas muy puntuales, a saber, el nivel etérico físico del campo físico cósmico permite a nuestra civilización tener un cuerpo etérico físico, que en nuestro sistema solar responde a las subleyes sistémicas que son las leyes etérico-físicas de nuestro.
That is the difference. It is as simple as that. The inner self, the 4 higher levels, the outer self, the personality, the lower 3, and the bridge, which as an extension of the soul enters the 3-dimensional and karmic world to take possession of that. That is the ego, the reincarnating energy.
Ingrese al mundo tridimensional y kármico a tomar posesión de eso. Ese es el ego, la energía reencarnante. Entonces, personalidad y ego son cosas totalmente diferentes. Esto recién en este ciclo se sabe así. En el ciclo anterior había una confusión incluso entre los instructores más afamados de Oriente y Occidente que confundían ego y personalidad y hablaban de uno y del otro indiferentemente. ¿Sí?
Daniel continues. Personality and ego are 2 distinct things. This understanding has only come about in the current cycle. In the previous cycle, even the most renowned teachers from the East and West were confused and used the terms ego and personality interchangeably. At this time, the information providing is accurate and helpful in understanding that our personalities do not define us. As we mature, we will come to realize that our personalities are a platform given to us to practice and master laws of matter.
A medida que maduramos como ego nos vamos a dar cuenta que la personalidad es un campo que se nos ofrece para ensayar el dominio de las leyes de la materia. ¿Por qué de las leyes de la materia? Porque la mente, nuestra mente individual, es una porción del mental planetario. Nuestro cuerpo astral emocional, una porción del cuerpo astral planetario.
Because of the laws of matter, because the mind, our mind, is a portion of the planetary mental body, our emotional astral body is a portion of the planetary astral body, and our physical etheric body is a portion of the substance of the planetary physical etheric reservoir. The personality is a synthesis suited to our evolutionary needs, so that the ego, as a representative extension of the soul, takes that triune entity, composed of these three levels, to master the planet's laws. When an ego learns to master and lead the personality, it has just learned to dominate and lead the material, karmic, and three-dimensional aspects offered for practice.
Esa entidad trina, compuesta por esos tres niveles, para dominar las leyes del planeta. Cuando un ego aprende a dominar y a conducir a la personalidad, acaba de aprender a dominar y conducir los aspectos materiales, kármicos y tridimensionales que se le ofrecieron para el ensayo.
Every incarnated being has 7 levels, but it does not mean that all of them are mature. For example, a being can be incarnated and the soul's maturation level can be minimal. The same with the monada and the same with the body of light.
Sí, 7 niveles, pero no significa que todos estén maduros. Por ejemplo, un ser puede estar encarnado y el nivel de maduración del alma ser muy limitado. Lo mismo de la mónada y lo mismo del cuerpo de luz, del traje de luz. Porque dependiendo del nivel iniciático de nuestro ser interno, quiere decir, el nivel evolutivo de nuestro ser interno,
Because depending on initiatory level of our inner being, that is, the evolutionary level of our inner being, is how he's going to have somehow offered inframonadic conditions. That is to say, the monada can be at a certain level, under certain conditions, and based on these conditions, everything that is at the inframonadic levels, the 5 levels below the monadic level, will have particular characteristics so that the monada is not limited or interfered with.
La ley planetaria y la ley del sistema solar le ofrecen a la mónada los vehículos inframonádicos, quiere decir lo que está debajo de la conciencia espiritual, acorde a lo que la mónada es, para que guarde coherencia el estado evolutivo de lo que recibe inframonádicamente con lo que ella está en condiciones de gobernar monádicamente.
Daniel Gagliardo continues, the laws of the planet and the laws of the solar system provide the monada with infranomadic vehicles corresponding to its spiritual consciousness.
Entonces, hay seres que están encarnados que tienen su cuerpo de luz prácticamente en un estado absolutamente vegetativo, germinal, latente. ¿Por qué? Porque no llegaron a la evolución suficiente para que se produzca gradualmente el crecimiento, la conformación del cuerpo de luz.
This allows the monada to govern the inframonadic vehicles by their evolutionary state. So some beings are incarnated and have their light body practically in vegetative, germinal, latent state because they have not reached sufficient evolution to gradually produce the growth and shaping of the body of light. In more evolved instances, the light body is a tool that the monada uses. It is the same with the soul. If the monada does not have a certain evolutionary level, the soul will not operate at the intuitive level.
Si la mónada no tiene cierto nivel evolutivo, el alma no va a estar operando el nivel intuitivo, quiere decir el nivel supramental directo. El alma va a estar en el mental superior, quiere decir trabajando todavía, operando en las bases energéticas de la ley mental planetaria, porque si se aleja hacia el intuitivo, rompe el vínculo con aquello que tiene que dominar.
Daniel continues, that is the direct supramental level. The soul will be in the higher mental, still working, operating on the energetic basis of the planetary mental law, because if it moves away from the intuitive, if it breaks the link with that which has to dominate, how, then, when the soul is not mature, being on the higher mental level and not on the intuitive, can it dispose of a more effective, though more primitive and rudimentary, way of the ego to enter matter? It is bound to the mental laws, though not to the concrete or rational mental laws, but to the subjective mental laws. What is called the higher mental aspect of the subjective mind. But those are the levels of our consciousness that compose us.
La mónada crece de un modo, toma ciertas características, entra en contacto con leyes monádico-cósmicas más elevadas, pasa por iniciaciones que la habilitan a un cierto dominio y conocimiento, eso lo transfiere en una ceremonia hacia el alma gradualmente se eleva.
As we undergo expansive process, the monada grows and develops specific characteristics. It also comes into contact with higher cosmic monadic laws and goes through initiations that enable it to attain mastery and knowledge. This knowledge is then transferred to the soul in a ceremony. The soul gradually rises and moves away from the higher mental level, embarking on a journey towards the intuitive level. This complex process can take several incarnations to complete and cannot be achieved overnight. As the soul reaches the intuitive level, it transforms into a unique tool guided into initiatory contexts, which were previously inaccessible. This is because certain types of initiatory process cannot be attained at the higher mental level. As the soul evolves, everything makes sense and falls into place. An individual with highly formed nuclei or sufficiently formed nuclei becomes a being, a tool, of their inner cosmos and serve the evolutionary plan of the planet.
La ley de karma y la conciencia interna se sirven de mecanismos evolutivos para que el ego, cada vez que tiene que encarnar, encuentre una personalidad a nivel psicofísico con características acordes al ensayo que la energía cósmica le va a brindar en esa encarnación.
The ego is the same, not because it undergoes an enlargement after each incarnation. So even if this enlargement is minimal, its state of consciousness changes. Therefore, having a personality that is the same as the previous one is useless. The law of karma and the inner consciousness make use of evolutionary mechanisms so that each time the ego has to incarnate, it finds a personality on a psychophysical level with characteristics following the experience that the cosmic energy will give it in that incarnation. The ego is the same, with even greater conditions of attunement, however minimal, and the personality is going to have the conditions that the ego requires to face all the karmic contingencies that it is going to have to go through, which are directly connected by transitive character to all its previous incarnations, because the conditions of each personality in each incarnation have the nuances that are also defined by previous incarnations.
Estamos en una transición planetaria. Esta transición se encamina al ápice de su condición, quiere decir, a lo más elevado para agotarse. Entonces, hay una cantidad inmensa de mónadas que ya están siendo preparadas para absorber sus egos, los egos que dependen directamente del alma. ¿Por qué?
This is determined by the exhaustion of the cycle, either of humanity or the planet where that monada is acting. What will happen now if we are in a planetary transition? This transition is heading towards the apex of its condition, that is to say, to the highest to be exhausted. Then many monadas are already being prepared to absorb their egos, which are directly dependent upon the soul.
Entonces, en este momento, todos los egos que están en el planeta están para ser disueltos, ya sea porque los seres van a retornar a la superficie del planeta y no les va a servir una condición egoica que fue diagramada para estar bajo ley de karma, o que vayan a ser migrados a otros campos cósmicos, planetarios, sistémicos, porque el ego no sirve para cualquier planeta, igual que el alma.
Why? Because the monadas that will pass into a high evolutionary law need other conditions that cannot be assisted by the present conditions of the egos, evolutionary karmic response. It is not that there will not be ego in the next cycle. Still, the ego manifesting in the next cycle will have different conditions. Even the egoic substance, that is, that reincarnating energy, that extension, that vibratory and magnetic bridge, which is the ego, will respond to a totally different law.
Lo único que puede migrar es la mónada, la conciencia espiritual, pero cada vez que la mónada migra a un sistema solar, a un planeta diferente, automáticamente va a estar bajo leyes diferentes, por lo cual no se va a expresar con la misma alma, porque el alma es una partícula sobreespecializada que le ofrece la ley planetaria a la mónada. Para que se entienda, la mónada migra, puede ir para cualquier lado cósmico.
So, at this time, all the egos that are on the planet are to be dissolved, either because the beings are going to return to the surface of the planet, or they are not going to be served by an egoic condition that was programmed to be under the law of karma, or they are going to be migrated to other cosmic or planetary systemic fields because the ego is no good for any planet, the same as the soul. The only thing that can migrate is the monada, the spiritual consciousness. When you disincarnate, the mental substance dilutes its present structure, which responds to the law of karma and your inner will. It returns to the reservoir of planetary mental substance and thus the astral and physical etheric substances. The only thing that does not dissolve is the monada. What the monada is doing is to expand its condition.
Porque la ley planetaria le ofrece a la mónada un elemento que responde a las leyes causales planetarias. Por eso se habla del cuerpo causal. ¿Por qué? Porque la esencia profunda del alma está sostenida por la irradiación monádica, pero la sustancia causal es planetaria. ¿Qué es lo que absorbe la mónada?
When you retire and return home, you don't even wear the steel-toed shoes or the helmet. You let go of all that. It was transitory. All the tools that the monada receives on a planet, in a solar system, are absolutely transitory. We are not yet moving towards the synthesis that takes us out of the sixfold condition. We now transcend on the planet Earth, on the surface, because in the inner levels, the higher evolutionary law and the law of equilibrium are operating. Where these laws of high evolutionary cycles or equilibrium do not act, they do not act on the surface and the planet center. In other words, the two extremes, the surface and the center, are under the law of karma.
Where these laws of higher evolutionary cycles or equilibrium do not act, they do not act on the surface and in the planet's center. In other words, the two extremes, the surface and the center, are under the law of karma.
¿Dónde no actúan esas leyes, tanto evolutiva superior de ciclos o de equilibrio? No actúan en la superficie y en el centro del planeta. O sea, los dos extremos, la superficie y el centro, están bajo la ley de karma. Cuando pasemos a la ley evolutiva superior, tanto en el centro como en la superficie, no vamos a ir hacia una síntesis donde dejemos de utilizar o necesitar un alma, ego, personalidad, solamente que van a estar respondiendo, ¿sí?
When we move to the higher evolutionary law, both at the center and on the surface, we are not going to go towards a synthesis where we stop using what the soul, ego, or personality needs. Only that they will be responding as tools to the high evolutionary law, to the law of cycles.
A soul, as a tool of the high evolutionary law or the law of cycles, is not the same as the soul under the law of karma, because the law of karma generates specific conditions. And ego, which is already an expression of the soul under the high evolutionary law, is not the same as an ego, which is an extension of the soul under the law of karma. And the rest of the levels are all the same.
Que un ego que está como extensión de un alma que está bajo la ley de karma. Y lo mismo todos los demás niveles. La personalidad de la cual se va a servir la vida interna en el ciclo venidero, bajo ley evolutiva superior, no va a ser una personalidad que responda a las mismas pautas ni tenga marcadas las mismas experiencias potenciales que las personalidades actuales.
The personality that the inner life will use in the coming cycle under the higher evolutionary law will not be a personality that responds to the same patterns, nor will it have the same potential experiences as the present personalities. Fundamentally, They are differentiated by the impurity they have, by the need that the law of purification as an auxiliary to the law of karma imposes continuously. If we are continuously purifying, but under the higher evolutionary law, what we understand today as purification does not exist.
Continuamente purificando, bajo ley evolutiva superior, lo que nosotros entendemos hoy como purificación no existe. Existen procesos que son necesarios, que compensan lo que hoy está prácticamente en manos absolutas de la ley de purificación, que son aspectos de la ley de transmutación, pero no la ley de purificación actuando como nosotros hoy la entendemos y de algún modo, dicho con humor, la padecemos. ¿Sí?
Some processes are necessary to compensate for what today is practically in the absolute hands of the law of purification, which are aspects of the law of transmutation, but not the law of purification acting as we understand it today. In a way, humorously put, we suffer from it. All this occurs in the universe under the laws of expansion, whereby every particle is gradually absorbed into a higher nucleus of consciousness. So, absorption and synthesis are continuous, just as the divine consciousness absorbs the reality and the monadic consciousness, which in turn absorbs the synthesis of the soul and that which operates in the personality as energy. So the regent himself, having absorbed the monada's functions, is in turn directed to live the gradual transfer for absorption into the logoic fields.
Please find out more about the evolution of the regent, the monadas and principles races in our next program on the 8th of March. Thank you for being with us.